Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 36th episode of Battles and Voices. I'm Lathika, and I'm the founder and host. Battles and Voices shares different experiences in healthcare in order to foster a supportive community for the future generation of medicine. Please welcome our guest, Dr. Dress.
Hi. Well, I am Dr. Morgan Dresvyannikov, but yes, most students and patients call me Dr. Dress, like the dress I wear. I'm a board certified family medicine physician from Kansas City, Missouri, and also run a nonprofit called Medical Explorers.
Perfect. That's amazing. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. We just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this episode. It means so much to us that you'll be one of our guests today on Battles and Voices. So, starting off with our very first question, how did starting college and medical school at such a young age shape the way that you approach medicine and mentorship today?
That's a great question. So, when I was in high school, I just was really interested in healthcare and I'm just overall a pretty efficient person. So, I felt like, man, I just want to see how could I accelerate my experience? How could I be around like-minded individuals sooner? So, I was able to search and find an academy called the Kansas Academy of Math and Science where I was able to actually move into the dorms and start college and taking full college load courses like all year round, but actually getting high school credit for them. And that really helped confirm my interest in healthcare and showed me, hey, I can optimize my study techniques and I can be successful in that. So that was really crucial in order to just provide confidence. And then that's also what gave me the confidence and probably the edge to get into medical school at 18. And so when I applied to medical school, there's a 6 year BA MD program in Kansas City at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. And you actually start seeing patients really early on. So 3 weeks into the 6 year program. So there was a ton of clinical experience. And so all of that really provided me with so much patient exposure and confirmation in my career path from an early age. And so that's why when I mentor students now, I'm always going to be telling them start as soon as you can. It's really never too early to start because it just gives you a longer runway and it helps you confirm that you're on the right path.
That's wonderful. So what challenges did you face early on in your journey that inspired you to create Medical Explorers?
Yeah, there were a few. So I was the first person in my family to want to become a doctor. And so there were a lot of just gaps that I didn't even know that I didn't know back in the day. And it was also just really hard to find shadowing opportunities without having connections. And so I kind of created Medical Explorers because I wanted to create the program that I wish I would have had in middle school and high school and even throughout medical school because I wanted to just provide that help and kind of level the playing field. So essentially, Medical Explorers is a way where I teach medical conferences during the summer to students as early as seventh grade. And so, really, it's hard for students to even shadow before 16. And this is a way where they can learn hands on skills like naloxone training, EpiPen training, suturing, CPR, wilderness medicine, all of these different hands on skills. And then I really had a hard time saying, like, hey, I don't have any credentials as a young student in healthcare, but I want to be a healthcare leader. And there really aren't a ton of opportunities to do that. And so, with the conferences, the Shining Star students, they're able to apply and come back as student healthcare leaders. So, that kind of fixes two problems. You can get early exposure, and then you can actually become a healthcare leader even when you are a student. And then, kind of a side benefit was as I went through medical school, I just realized that there were huge healthcare literacy gaps across the country and in the world. And so, this education that I'm providing, it was also a way to kind of help bridge those gaps so we can improve wellness across the country just with education alone. Even if students decided, hey, this isn't for me, that's okay. They still walked away with skills that they could help other people with down the road. Those are the primary challenges that I faced, and then now how I'm trying to fix those for students moving forward.
That's amazing. I absolutely love the work that you're doing. I think the work that you're doing is amazing for students all over the world. So, how do you manage working full-time as a physician while also running a nonprofit organization?
Yeah, it can be a little tricky sometimes. I mean, I think trying to be mindful and intentional with my time. And just like I tell my students to be intentional with their time as well. So I schedule my work in a way where, I try and leave all of my work at work. So I get all of my notes done. I never take any like doctor work home. That's just been a policy from the day I graduated medical school. So that's something that I definitely encourage students to think about as they're going through their medical training. So then, really, when I come home, I spend time with my wonderful young son and husband. And then when I manage the nonprofit, I do that in a very strategic way. So I do take paid time off work from my job to run the summer conferences. And then with my Medical Explorers Insider program, I'm very strategic and I have 2 weekly scheduled group calls to help troubleshoot with students, roadblocks that they're running into, if they have questions about like my curriculum or templates or anything like that. So that way, those are always scheduled. And then I do try and have conversations too with students on Instagram if they have questions. And I just kind of fill that in between if I have some extra time, because that's also very motivating just to see students and work with students that have ambition and drive.
That's really amazing, and I love how you're able to put in time for your family, the nonprofit organization, and you as a physician as well. So, what is one healthcare concept that you believe everyone should know because it could probably save a life?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, as a family medicine doctor, I'm currently working in the clinic setting, but I've also worked in the urgent care and I used to work in the ER a lot before I had a kiddo as well. One of the biggest things that I can see not only saving lives, but also improving quality of life are essentially stroke recognition. So, having people realize that someone else is having a stroke and getting them help in a timely manner can, really improve outcomes, because I would have a lot of people that would come into my ER that they would just think, oh, people just said I needed to go lay down and take a nap, and they woke up hours later, and then there really isn't a whole lot that I can do about it. Or sometimes they would have even passed away during that nap. So, recognizing the signs of stroke, so facial drooping, having misbalance or essentially one arm that's weaker than another, slurred speech, or drooling out of one side of the mouth. All of those are really important signs that, hey, this is serious. Somebody might be having a stroke, and you should probably seek medical attention as quickly as possible. Because depending on medical conditions, if you are evaluated and treated within 3 to 4 hours, your outcomes can be substantially better. So not only save your life, but also improve quality of life. So that's one of the biggest things. But I can't, it's hard for me to pick one, because that's why I teach like 40 different of them in my medical conferences during the summer. Because I think, students can be impactful. And I've had so many students take the lessons that we've learned and actually save lives when they've, gone out into their community after our conferences. And so I think learning as much as you can is also kind of the biggest takeaway as well.
Yes, learning is very essential, and thank you for sharing that information with us. So you worked with hundreds of students. What do you think some qualities that actually really matter most for success in healthcare beyond academics and studies?
Yeah, really good question. There are a lot of students that really just focus on like, I have to get a 4.0. And really, those students can sometimes be very successful, but the students that I see being most successful are the ones that have a few things. The number one thing being grit. So having resilience and confidence and pushing through challenges. Healthcare is not always the easiest path. And so you have to have that grit and resilience in order to get through successfully. So that's the number one thing that I see the most successful students doing and having. The other kind of similar lines of thought would be being very intentional and also taking initiative. So thinking ahead and then also being bold and taking the initiative to start something, because nothing is going to like fall into their lap. And so the more that you do that, you're going to build confidence in yourself, realize that you have success, and then that's also going to help combat the imposter syndrome that so many of us have during our journeys through healthcare.
That was perfectly said. So what helps you stay motivated to keep going every day and kind of avoid that burnout?
Yeah, burnout is a big topic for sure. I think one thing that, especially in healthcare education, people don't talk about a whole lot for whatever reason at this point is having faith. And so my faith is something that is really important. And God has blessed me so much throughout my journey. And so faith is a big component of my life. And that really fills my cup by like attending church weekly and things like that. But also, medical explorers is something that helps me avoid burnout because working with students, it never feels like work. Every single student that I engage with, it's just truly a joy to see them succeed and be there as an advocate on their journey. So, both of those together are just ways that I really fill my cup. And then also being intentional and making sure to find work life balance to, spend time with my family, my wonderful son and husband. They're just so important too. And, enjoying life as a whole because it's not all work, even though it's important, but family is always going to come very high on the totem pole too.
Yes, I agree. So, what misconceptions do you think students often have about healthcare careers before they even experience them firsthand?
Yeah, great question. I would say I have four that come to mind. The first one being that a lot of students will say, "Hey, I've watched Grey's Anatomy and I want to be a neurosurgeon." I have like hundreds of students tell me that. And I have some unfortunate news that it's not that glamorous, and becoming a neurosurgeon can take like up to 15 years. So just kind of having that reality check. That's kind of right off the bat. I will say that The Pit is actually one of the most realistic shows. So that would be something to look into if you want to at least watch a show that's more accurate. And then also the financial reality check. As a practicing physician, we take an oath to do no medical harm. But I also truly believe that I'm going to try my best to not do financial harm as well. And so I think I translate that over to the students I work with because people don't talk about how expensive medical education and training can be. And that's why when I'm talking with students, I'm so passionate about them getting experience early on to confirm their interest before they go into professional school and before they spend a lot of time and a lot of money on courses and then they change their mind. People don't talk about how you still have to pay back that debt. And so if you change midway through, that can really put people at a disadvantage. So that's why kind of being strategic and thinking ahead and being intentional ahead of time will save so much time and money. And then the two other ones that I just see all the time, students will say like, "Oh, I don't know how to get shadowing opportunities." And I can relate to that. I was in your shoes, but the reality is like you have to take initiative and you have to make it happen. You have to think outside the box and you have to be willing to be bold. That's kind of all the stuff that I'm not saying that it just happens out of nowhere, but that's why I try and give people strategic things that they can do in order to succeed. And then lastly, that really people do not talk about at all in healthcare, you are a public servant. So we are taking care of people in their most vulnerable times, and you have to be trusted in order to do that. And so there's a big misconception that um, you can just get through and it'd be okay. But I really want to promote students being excellent future healthcare professionals. And with that, you have to hold yourself to a higher standard. So I would say don't even get into the healthcare field at all if you're not willing to really hold yourself to a higher standard. And that's, at work, but also in your personal life. Because the worst thing that you can do is train and get your degree and then go make a very big mistake and then lose all of that and not be able to practice. So you really do need to hold yourself to a higher standard, kind of starting right out of the gate.
That was well said. And yes, I definitely love Grey's Anatomy as well, but I will definitely try to watch. I think you said The Pit. Was
Yes.
that the show's name? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can definitely relate with the shadowing opportunities, Camden and I, we've like tried to like research so much like different shadowing opportunities. We reached out to like so many individuals, but students our age, it's kind of difficult and really rare to get those opportunities. But yeah, taking initiative really helps. So thank you so much for the advice. So what changes do you hope future healthcare professionals will bring to improve the healthcare system?
I think one of the biggest things that I'm passionate about and why I like working with motivated students specifically and driven students, it's primarily because rising tides raise all ships. So if I can help students have the right mentality and get to where they need to go, those are the kind of leaders that we need. Because I think that we can change the culture of healthcare education to have more of a culture of respect, even to the trainees, because that can be a really hard path. So, how can we make that better, but still hold people to a high standard during that training? I think that's a big change in healthcare that we're going to see. And then also still maintaining our humanity, because as a healthcare professional, there's such a component of like you have to be able to build relationships with people and listen to them, because commonly patients are going to tell you what's wrong with them if you just listen. And so trying to change this healthcare setting of like just see as many patients as you can and move on. I really want to try and still encourage the humanity within medicine. That way we can provide the kind of healthcare that you would want for like a friend and family member.
I definitely have to agree. Nowadays healthcare can just be, as you said, seeing patients and patients. But sometimes you do have to take a pause and kind of, show that humanity and that empathy towards not only patients, but your coworkers as well. So that was wonderfully said as well. So how has expanding medical explorers, globally changed your perspective on medical education and mentorship?
Yeah, I think it has been amazing. I've worked with so many students locally, but we've expanded across the country and across the world now. And I'm not an expert on, every country's healthcare system, but so many of the principles that I teach students are just like, wow, like this really helped me get that opportunity. I got into my professional school, PA school, med school, in different countries. So the same rules apply. And that's just where trying to I'm just inspired, honestly, by students that have the motivation and drive. They are going to be making impacts, and we're all going to be better together for it. And so I'm just so honored that I can walk with students on their journey and just be a small part in helping them on their way.
Well, congratulations again for having Medical Explorers, be a global initiative. And to wrap things up, do you have any advice to give to any of the members listening in the audience hoping to enter the same line of work that you're in?
Yeah, great question. Like I said, start as early as you can. If you think it's too early, still start, because it's going to give you the longest runway, and just try and be as intentional as you can. Build those mentorship relationships that will provide the advocacy for good recommendation letters and really help you stand out in a sea of very qualified applicants, at the professional school level. And then definitely earn your opportunities. That's why when I'm working with students, I have my Medical Explorers Insider course, but I truly reward students that put in the work. So they submit their capstone project, and then if they show a lot of initiative, the best students I interview and I directly mentor them for free. So that's something where I just want to give back and reward students that are doing a really good job. So if you're like, hey, I'm stuck, look into it. I'm happy to help you kind of learn all the insider tips and tricks. And I've spent a long time putting all of that information together for you to streamline that process and answer those questions. But just start now, is the main thing. And don't be afraid to be bold.
I really love that advice, Dr. Jess. Thank you so much for sharing your journey through medicine and how you've reached this particular stage in life. It was truly inspiring to hear about the path that you took early on and how it's helped you to achieve success now. To everyone tuning in, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Battles and Voices. Your engagement and loyalty means the world to us. If you enjoyed this conversation, then be sure to follow, share, and stay tuned for more episodes on Battles and Voices. We'll see you next time.